What's going on, everyone? Happy Monday to everyone. Hopefully, everyone is doing well, staying safe, healthy. Hopefully, you had a great weekend. And if you had to take a COVID test over the weekend, hopefully, you have tested negative. It's Monday today. It's Walgreens Day. If you notice, we're wearing red today because Walgreens updated today. We're also wearing red because over on my other channel, Climate Data Report, we're actually talking about some pretty serious, severe thunderstorms today. We already did one update on that this morning. There may be a second update coming on that this afternoon. Check out my other channel. It'll be posted in the links down below. All right, let's start off nationally with Walgreens, and then we will go through majority of the states. We haven't done a dedicated Walgreens video in a while, and I just thought, you know what, maybe it's a good idea to do that today because it would just run too long in the pandemic update, and there are several things that I want to show the pandemic update today. I don't really like videos that go over 20 minutes, but sometimes they do happen. Alrighty, first off, nationally, 44.7% positivity is the national positivity level. That's up from last week. That's bad news. There's kind of some good news within this, if you want to call it good news, but here you go. Last week was 41.3%. That's a difference of up 3.4%. That's the bad news. The good news is testing did increase. We always are happy to see when there's more testing, but again, the positivity continued to win up despite a testing increase. 2,414 tests last week versus 2,286. So good to see testing up. Bad to see the positivity up as well. Now, any state that's in the white, that state did not report. So we used to always start off with Maine. Can't do that. Any state in the red, it's rapidly rising. Any state in the green, it's dropping. Light green, slightly dropping. And this creamish color, rising slightly. Let's start off with Massachusetts first, should we? And Massachusetts, here you go. 21.9% positivity this week, 37.5% last week, 15.6% drop, but you also have a testing increase of 32 versus 24. Yes, I think it's safe to say, at least on Walgreens data, it's a legit drop. We do know that in wastewater data, COVID is actually rising. So don't take Walgreens at the face value every time we look at a region because we have other data that says it's rising. We'll go with that other data. Now let's go over to Connecticut. And Connecticut, wow, is really bad. 50% positivity this week, 29.4% last week, difference of 20.6%. And it's 12 tests versus 17 tests. So yes, testing's down, but when you have such a high increase, two things actually. When you have such a high increase in the positivity and such little testing, we can assume that yes, there's rising cases in Connecticut, and wastewater does back that. So we're going with Connecticut's likely rising at this time. New York State. Now you're probably looking here saying, whoa, 55.6%. And yes, 55.6% is really bad. And the prior week was 34.9%, difference of up 20.6%. But 54 tests versus 63. So testing is down, but we've also been watching New York State positivity levels on the state dashboard. You'll see it in the pandemic update later today if you come back and check that out. The positivity levels continuing to rise there. So, yes, testing is down, but you know what? When we have positivity and hospitalizations that are rising in New York State, we can safely assume that, yes, cases are actually rising there right now. Let's take a look at Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, 35% this week, 33.3% last week, difference of 1.7% up, 20 tests versus 27. Some wastewater data is rising in Pennsylvania, but again, this is a drop in testing, so I don't think it's a legitimate drop. I think Pennsylvania is probably just week over week. If you had to look at case data, if we could, Pennsylvania doesn't report cases anymore. It's probably flat, or at least based on Walgreens data. Taking a look at Maryland, and again, this is another state where you don't see testing up. Eventually, we're going to find somewhere that has increased testing because remember, week over week nationally, testing is up. Current week in Maryland, 50%. Prior week, 26.3%. difference of 23.7% up. Total test 14. Prior week 19. So testing's actually down, but that's such a big rise and it's going up so fast, we can assume cases are likely rising there. Virginia, 30.6% positivity this week, 26% last week. Testing is down quite a bit. Positivity's up 4.6%. It's 36 tests versus 50. Again, not a lot, but that is down. And I'm going to go with probably a slight drop in Virginia. Maybe. I'm being hopeful. I'm trying to be optimistic here. Ohio. Ohio, we do see testing is up. And we also see the positivity is up. 20% positivity this week, 19.4% last week. That's a difference of up 0.6%. 40 tests versus 31. This is a legitimate rise. Then we come over here to Indiana. And Indiana, whoa, this is bad. 30% positivity this week, 11.8% last week, 18.2% up, and 30 tests versus 27. That is not good at all. This is a legitimate rise. This is a big legitimate rise. Kentucky, 54.5% positivity this week, 50% last week, difference of 4.5% up. And that's 11 tests versus 14. It's not a whole lot of testing, so their cases are likely elevated. Man, they're likely rising right now. Tennessee, 35.7% positivity this week, 44.1% last week, down 8.4%, and that's with testing being down. 28 versus 34, so I don't know about wastewater data or any other data. I'm going to call this a legitimate drop at this time. North Carolina, 41.6% positivity this week, 46.8% last week. Difference of down 5.3%. It's 77 tests versus 79 tests. And let's come down here to Georgia. 48.2% positivity this week, 44.2% last week. That's a difference of up 4%. 110 tests versus 95. That's 15 tests more. And this, my friends, is a legitimate rise. All right, here comes a big and important one. Florida. And Florida, we see positivity is continuing to, wow, rapidly rise. 52.8% positivity this week, 49.1% last week. A difference of up 3.7%, and there was a pretty significant testing increase. 553 tests versus 456, and yet the positivity continued to rise. Coming over here to Alabama, 50% positivity this week, 54.2% last week, 4.2% drop, 14 tests versus 24. Yes, I think we can call this a legitimate drop because it did drop even with a big decrease in testing. Coming over here to Louisiana, 20% positivity this week, 23.5% last week. That is down 3.5%. 15 tests versus 17. That's a legitimate drop. Texas is really bad. Big rises on everything, actually. 49.2% positivity this week, 40.5% last week. That's 8.8% higher with an increase in testing. 524 tests versus 487. So the South surge, the two big states that always blow up in the summer, Texas and Florida, Walgreens definitely supports that right now. Oklahoma. Oh, well, look at this. Oklahoma did not report last week. 46.2% this week. Nothing last week. 46.2% increase because of nothing. 13 tests more, and it looks to me as if their positivity, let's zoom this in. Maybe their positivity is dropped a little now. It would technically be rising again. It's Oklahoma. Oklahoma's data is lousy to begin with. Let's finish the West states, and then we'll do all the Great Lakes states as well. We might as well just do every state that's reporting. 54.5% positivity in New Mexico, 18.2% prior week, 36.4% increase. 11 tests versus 11. You know the deal. This is a legitimate rise. Utah, 45.5% this week, 25% last week. Difference of 20.5%. 11 tests versus 12. Yeah, this is a legitimate rise. Such small testing, and it's only one test different. This is a legitimate rise. Then we come over here to Nevada. Nevada is 56.4% this week, 35.7% last week. Difference of up 20.7%. 39 tests versus 28. That's more testing. It's a legitimate rise. Not good to see. And now California. California, 48.3%. This week, 40.7%. Last week, difference of up 7.6%. 232 tests versus 258. I think we're going to call this a legitimate rise just because it has risen as much as it did. Coming up here to Oregon, 15.4% positivity this week versus 34.6% last week. That's a difference of down 19.2%. Testing remained the same. Yeah, it's a legitimate drop. Washington, 25% positivity this week, 35.3% last week. That's a difference of down 10.3%. 44 tests versus 34. That is a legitimate drop. Now we come over here to Minnesota. 33.3% positivity this week, 41.7% last week, 8.3% down. That's good. 24 tests versus 24. This is a legitimate drop. Now coming over to, let's see here, Wisconsin. 16.7% this week, 15.1% last week. Difference of down 42.4%. 30 tests versus 22. This is a huge drop. And yes, it's a legitimate drop by Walgreens standards, but we do know there are a few wastewater sites that are rising in that area. Illinois, 38% positivity this week, 46.3% last week. 8.3% decrease. Testing is down 108 versus 121. And yeah, I'm going with this as a legitimate drop because we're not seeing huge rises just yet in the wastewater in Illinois. Michigan, 22.6% positivity this week, 33.3% last week, difference of 10.8%. Total testing is 31 versus 24. This is a legitimate drop. And we also do finally have Missouri. Missouri is at 30.4% this week, 29.6% last week, 0.8% increase, not that big of an increase. 23 tests versus 27 tests. I'm going to go with Missouri is flat at this time. Already, I think we covered every state. Alaska and Hawaii did not report. Remember, all these white states also did not report. Did we do Delaware? No, Delaware did not report either. So that's it. We did every state that reported this week. And again, to recap, there is an increase in testing this week nationally at Walgreens. That's a good thing to see, but despite that, the positivity level nationally still did increase by 3.4% to 44.7%, indicating that the surge and the wave in the United States continues to grow. Alrighty, thanks for watching. We'll have the pandemic update in a few hours from now later on, so please check back for that. We got some new data to show you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content like this, subscribe to my channel down below. And if you know anyone that needs a wake-up call, a reminder that the pandemic is not over, by all means, share this with them. I will see you all again next time. But until I see you again next time, stay safe, everyone, and have a great afternoon.